Baruch Hashem, you're a bad Jew.
Shalom.
Hey, you. Yeah, you with the face. Welcome back to Bad Jew, the place where there is no such thing as a bad Jew. With me today is Sam Freed. Sam has been an online warrior, but he's also been a warrior IRL in real life, and we're going to hear his story in a second. But Sam, how are you today?
Thank God. Doing well. Happy to be here. What's up, everybody?
I love to hear it. Sam, you're a hero. You've done a lot of really amazing work, both on the field and in person. We're going to learn more about that in what's called the 4-minute Bad Jew Challenge. Are you ready?
Born ready.
Excellent. Echad, shtayim, shalosh, yalla.
Okay. Sam Freed from New York, born and raised. Man, where to start? I've been the biggest Zionist since I'm a kid. Grew up in a very Zionistic household. My grandfather fought in World War II in the Battle of Normandy. And so kind of had this feeling of, like I said before, born ready, born to fight, kind of just been my life story. And, I went to a religious high school in the city, and as all my friends, I don't know if people know this, but in between high school and university in religious Jewish high schools, people generally opt to go to Israel for a seminary or gap year. And I opted not to do that because I knew I wanted to go to the army. So I made a deal with my parents that I would go to college first and then serve afterwards. So I got my degree in finance. I went to Baruch College. And then after that, served in the army, served in the paratroopers. I was a company leading machine gunner, and by the end of my service, I was his first sergeant. So I was running a squadron. Served in a whole bunch of different places during my service: North, South, Judea, Samaria, on the Gaza border. In the summer of 21, came back after finishing my service, and was in that position of, well, I guess you got to start life somewhere. So I started my first job in banking. I work at an international bank to this day, same place, and I do project finance, which really just means we're lending for massive infrastructure projects. Then, of course, October 7th happens, and everybody's lives are flipped upside down, and I'm tasked with a choice that I call the easiest, hardest decision of my life, which was that I knew I had to go back and fight. I wanted to be with my team. I wanted to be part of history of protecting innocent people and the Jewish people. But obviously, it's very difficult when your family is crying and telling you not to go. And so I was tasked with, do you change history and go and be like your grandfather who fought in the Battle of Normandy? Or, do you fold in the face of something great? And I'm fortunate to say that I did the former. And I went with my gut, and I served, and I went back. I joined my team that I was with in my regular service, and we were in Gaza for about 2 months, serving in a whole bunch of different places in Gaza, in the central and south of Gaza. And there I served as a sharpshooter, and again as a first sergeant commander of a squadron. After that 2 months, we were essentially released. All said and done, I was in Gaza for about 5 months. Came back to America after that, and there was chaos. It was not the same America, not the same sympathetic place that I remember it being. And I said to myself that, yes, I was just on the physical battlefield, but there's an ideological battle that is equally or even more important than the one that I was just in, and it's incumbent upon me to join it. And so I decided that I needed to go and start making a change on the ideological front, because there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of things that people don't quite understand about the conflict. And so now I've been going around the country speaking about my experience in Gaza and how we're going to make peace. And I stand on 3 foundational pillars. First being empowering Jews and our interfaith allies. The second being having dialogue for peace. And the third and final being humanizing the IDF. And that is my 4-minute nutshell.
You nailed that to the T. And first of all, what an empowering, amazing story. And just to really wrap my head around your story here, So there's the generational service that your family has committed to. You said your grandpa served in World War II, and then you had done your initial combat in Israel, and then you went back again after October 7th. So you've served for the for the IDF on 2 separate occasions by choice.
Correct.
That's pretty amazing, and thank you for your heroism and your family's heroism too. It's really an honor to be speaking with you and to have this time with you. I really do appreciate it.
Honor is mine.
Well, Sam, there's this phrase that we keep on hearing that Israel, the IDF specifically, that the IDF is the most moral army in the world. I personally want to believe that. However, there are trolls here on the internet. There are so many different trolls out there on the internet. And the trolls, if you say something enough, what we've seen just based on human nature is that if you hear something enough, well, then surely it must be true. Now, I just want to put a full disclaimer out there. I personally am not caving into that bullshit rhetoric, right? However, I will be playing the part of devil's advocate here. I will be doing my best to get to the deeper answers and to ask the questions that perhaps an anti-Zionist or a skeptic or even a cynic might ask. And so I'm going to ask you some questions here about the IDF and try to understand it, okay? For starters...
But before you do, I just want to, I think it's very important that we note, I do not speak on behalf of the IDF. I speak on behalf of myself, and I speak on behalf of my own lived experiences. So I'm not speaking on behalf of the Israeli Defense Forces or the Israeli government for that matter. Now you may proceed.
Okay, great. Let's confront one of the biggest hot button phrases that we've heard coming out from the rhetoric that we see online right now, okay? Let's just say it. The IDF is committing a genocide. True or false, and what evidence points to which direction of your answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, this is maybe the biggest ridiculous claim that has been made. Genocide, the definition of genocide, means the intentional destruction of a group of people, right? If you look at what intent is, you have to look at what Israel has done to show intention, right? If we're trying to destroy a group of people, we all know that Israel is far more powerful than Hamas and could wipe them off the map whenever they wanted. Obviously, they did not do that, or this war would have been over on October 8th. But that's not even the big point. The big point is, what has Israel done since, right? If you really look at what Israel has been doing since the beginning of the war, since their ground operation, okay, we've dropped millions of leaflets telling people exactly where to go, exactly where not to be, because we're going to strike. Okay, show me another nation that has done that for the civilians. I don't remember on October 7th, people dropping leaflets, Hamas dropping leaflets to the Nova Festival saying, hey, don't be at this festival, we're going to come and attack. I don't remember that. That shows intent of genocide. Okay, you look at what else Israel has done. Myself and my team have assisted in escorting civilians to safe places by the tens of thousands at the expense of our own lives. Why would we do that if all we care about is just murdering people? That makes no sense. It simply just doesn't make sense. And third, if we really, really, really did not care about the Palestinian people, we would not have given them 3 weeks before we even began our operation, right? You have to remember, after October 7th, we waited 3 weeks for people to be evacuated from the north. We said until the Wadi, and so Gaza was essentially cut in half, gave people the ability to evacuate, and then we still go into houses, house to house, house to house, house to house, to make sure that we're not just leveling things. Yes, this is war. This is not an easy war, but no war is easy. But if you look at the numbers, Israel has done a better job in modern urban warfare than any other urban war, modern urban war, according to the United Nations. The United Nations states a 9-to-1 civilian to combatant death ratio, according to modern urban warfare, right? So if you think about what that really means, that means that 90% of the people, according to the UN, that are killed in modern urban war are civilians. That number is ridiculously high, but it is because modern urban wars are fought amongst civilians. It makes sense. It's naturally, you can't really be upset when civilians die when you're fighting a war amongst civilians. It's just the nature of modern urban war. But then you look at what Israel has done in this war. If you even take Hamas's numbers, which we're talking about an international terrorist organization designated by the United States and the EU, who obviously their numbers cannot be trusted. But let's just take their numbers for argument's sake. If you're going to take their numbers, you also then have to take Israel's numbers of how many Palestinian terrorists, Hamas terrorists, PIJ, whoever you want to call it, have been killed. If you look at both of those numbers, you're looking at a civilian to combatant death ratio of like 1.3, 1.4 to 1. That is way, way below any other modern urban war in modern history. It's that simple. And that is specifically because of Israel's desire to protect civilians and to do our best to make sure that we don't intentionally harm civilians. Again, this is war. It's not simple and it's not easy. It's bloody. But then again, if you don't want people to die, why start a war in the first place? If you don't want people to die, why not accept a ceasefire? One of the 19, to this day, 19 ceasefire opportunities have been on the table. We're talking October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. We are now in July. If they didn't want more people to die, they could have stopped this war whenever they wanted. They had to do two things. One, release the hostages. Two, disarm. It's that simple.
Thank you, Sam. Way more articulate of an answer than I expected. And the problem with social media and what trolls put out there is that they take advantage of the fact that unless you're going to make a video response to a specific comment, you can't really give an in-depth answer like you just had, because I believe it's like a maximum of 50 characters per comment or something like that on the social media platforms. Maybe on Instagram and Facebook, you can get away with a longer answer like that. But on TikTok and Twitter, you definitely have caps on that, which makes it harder to respond and have an actual dialogue on it. No less, social media is no place to do this virtual battle, and yet it's there in the first place. So I really want to thank you, Sam, for explaining your experiences and also, highlighting some of the key attributes of what mark the IDF's unique tactical prowess in this battle.
Yeah. Before you continue, Chaz, I also think it's important to note, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning of that point, that if you look at what Hamas is doing, that's actually the genocide. And I'm not saying that they're successfully committing genocide, but if you look at what the difference is between Hamas and the Nazis, it's capability, not intent. Let's make that very clear. If on October 7th they could have murdered as many Israelis and Jews as possible, they would have. That's what they tried to do. It's not, people are conflating these two things. It's very, very simple. Hamas is trying to commit genocide. Israel is trying to protect innocent civilians. And Hamas doesn't care when their people get killed. Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, has constantly said since the beginning of the war that their people are a people of martyrs, that they're ready to die for the cause. I don't think they are. I think it's just Hamas.
Let's talk about the people, because you've actually dealt with the people in Gaza face to face, quite literally. So instead of playing devil's advocate, I really just want to get a first person account. What has it been like working with the people in Gaza? And also, how have they been receptive towards you?
Look, I think it's very important to note that the people in Gaza, and I firmly believe that there are innocent people in Gaza, but when you go into houses and you see next to a child's bedroom there are weapons, or under a bed next to a child's bedroom there's an Uzi, or you have pictures of Shaheeds on the refrigerator, or you find Hamas flags in their rooms, or whatever it may be, okay, an RPG in the sofa, or a box of grenades under a toilet. These are real things that we found. Tunnels in their backyards. It makes it very, very difficult for us to feel like there are many innocent civilians. That does not give us the right to go and indiscriminately kill anybody. God forbid. That is not what we do. However, there are international laws that go in accordance with these things, right? If somebody is providing material support for a combatant in any war, they are no longer protected by the Geneva Convention, right? They're considered a belligerent, a civilian belligerent, which is somebody who has put themselves in a position of, unfortunately, have gotten themselves into the war by nature of what they're doing for one side of the war.
Could I ask
Granted,
could I ask a question about that?
yeah, go ahead.
What's the difference between me, who has donated resources like money or actual goods to organizations that deliver to the IDF, and a belligerent civilian?
I mean, I guess given that you're not on the battlefield, you wouldn't have any, like, they wouldn't be able to do anything to you. You're not there, right? I think a civilian belligerent would apply more to somebody who is giving shelter for a Hamas terrorist, or I guess for their case, they would say an IDF soldier, right?
Right. I asked that question because of the fact that I've heard rhetoric where I've literally heard people say from the extreme left that if you are in support of the IDF in any way, you deserve to be killed. I've literally received that kind of message before.
And I've seen that as well. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Have you ever given money to the American government or the American army?
No, actually, I have not.
Okay.
I mean,
well,
well, through taxes, I have. Through taxes, I have. Sure.
Sure, fine. So by that logic, it's the same thing. You should be killed, right? Because you're providing some type of material support to the American army. It makes no sense. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And by the way, let's make it very clear that there's a compulsory draft in Israel. When you were 18, you were drafted to the military. It doesn't matter if you're a woman, a guy. It does not matter who you are. You were drafted. Now, actually, it's interesting. I served with Muslims, Druze, the Druze people, and they're allowed to serve in the military with me. They served with me on my team, fighting against Hamas, fighting the same battle that I'm fighting in the name of liberating people and redeeming peace. I'll make it very simple. When Iran shot their 300 ballistic missiles to Israel and their drones, and when Hamas is shooting its, I guess, now over 12, 13,000 rockets over the course of the war, and when Hasbarah has shot almost 7,000 rockets over the course of the war, they are not targeting any specific thing. They are literally indiscriminately targeting civilians. That could be Muslims, that could be Jews, that could be Christians. Oftentimes, you'll see in terrorist attacks, literally tourists just get murdered. And it's beyond me that somebody can possibly favor this group. And I want to make an interesting point that I think is really important. A lot of people bring up this idea of, oh, but they've been in occupation for 75 years. Of course they're going to act out like this. Of course they have the right to have resistance. And you know what I say to that? My grandparents, my other side, who were in the Holocaust, right? They lost their land in Romania, Poland, my extended family, Germany, Hungary, Austria, wherever you want to call it. I do not remember any time in history after a true genocide happened in the Holocaust where 6 million Jews were killed, including 1.1 million children and millions more displaced. I do not remember the Jews coming back to Europe and indiscriminately raping and murdering Germans, Austrians, Poles, anybody. I don't remember it happening. And that's a real genocide. So if you're going to make excuses for terrorism, you're just supporting terrorism. In that case, I guess 9/11 is okay for them as well.
Yeah. Well said. You brought up a point about displacing people, and that goes hand in hand with the idea of ethnic cleansing. That's another buzzword that gets thrown out a lot there. How is what is happening in Gaza not ethnic cleansing?
Well, I mean, I guess their bigger point is that Israel, through the Nakba and all these different things, have removed Palestinians from their homes. And we can get into a deeper discussion about that, how in 1948, Israel extended their hand in peace, after the UN resolution created Israel. And the next day, 5 Arab countries attacked Israel, genocidal attack to destroy any hope for the Israeli country that was 1 day old. You start a war. Unfortunately, they lost the war. Israel won the war. People left on the accord of, there were people like the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was one of the biggest leaders, and also incidentally met with Hitler, but one of the big leaders of the Arab world back in the 1940s. And he was begging people, leave your homes, take your women and children and leave your homes for the duration of the war until after the war, because we don't want you to be caught in the crosshairs. There's going to be barreling armies coming into Israel. And so people did heed that warning. The Syrian prime minister said the same thing. Leave. We are going to come in. We don't want you in the way. And so people left. They don't want to be part of war. Let me ask you something. If your family was in their home and suddenly there's I don't know, airplanes overhead bombing you, you're not staying in your house. You're going to leave. So people were displaced. And it's terrible. But every single war in the world has people displaced. You can't point to a single war in which people were not displaced. And so it's unfortunate, but again, don't start war. You had the opportunity to live side by a Jewish country in peace. And then if you want to bring it to the Gaza related issue, it kind of goes back to the same point. If you throw a rock at a hornet's nest, what do you expect to happen? They started a war with us. We did not ask for this war. And this is maybe the biggest misconception of the entire war, is that Israel wants Gaza. We left Gaza in 2005 in the name of peace. We didn't just leave. It wasn't like military occupation. We're talking 9,000 Jews were living in Gush Katif in Gaza. 22 Jewish communities were uprooted forcibly, not by their own accord. You could look at videos. There were protests in the streets for months about the forced displacement of Jewish families by Israel in the name of peace to give land for the Gaza people. What ended up happening? Hamas comes into power.
Yeah.
And by the way, let's make it very clear. Hamas did not just come into power by choice, right? They came in by force. They won an election, and all of their Fatah counterparties were thrown off buildings. Thousands of them were killed by Hamas. But it's totally fine because it was Hamas on PIJ or Hamas on Fatah. It's totally fine to everybody else. There's no problem. Only when the Jews are involved is there a problem. And I want to make that point very clear, because you look at Syria, Bashar al-Assad killed 500,000 Muslims. Where's the outrage? You look at the Yemen civil war, 450,000 Muslims are killed. Where's the outrage? You look at China right now, 1.2 million Muslims are currently in Chinese internment camps. Not a single person is doing rallies. Not a single person is doing protests while these people, these poor people, are being unlawfully held against their will, probably tortured, probably killed, probably raped. Where is the outrage? So you know what I say to you, Chaz? No Jews, no news. It's that simple.
It's true. I'll also say that the numbers that you just described, it's something that drives me wild. It's like the key indicator to how anti-Zionism is, but just modern day anti-Semitism. Constantly, I see those numbers and I think to myself, wow, pro-Palestinian math is quite the math. It's pretty crazy. Another question I have for you. This again is about demystifying a concept that I keep on seeing on the comment section all the time. Okay. And that is that Israel wouldn't be jack shit. I'm just going to use like the exact language I've seen the comments from the comment section. Israel wouldn't be jack shit if it wasn't for America. True or false?
I don't really know what that means, honestly. There's a couple of things.
Saying that specifically, the IDF wouldn't be as effective or capable if it wasn't for America. That any success that Israel has made is solely because of America.
I mean, we're two of the biggest allies in the world. So I'm like, yeah, sure, but it's a symbiotic relationship. Israel helps America with technology, with cyber technology, with military technology, including the Iron Dome, which Israel developed. Right now, there's a big talk. It was just big news yesterday that Google is looking to buy, for their biggest acquisition in history of Google, a $23 billion valued Israeli company, which is a cybersecurity company that's supposed to help with cloud computing and cybersecurity. And so I don't really understand what people mean by that. And by the way, what does it really imply? That Israel, like, fine, okay, so what? So like, by that same logic, Europe would not exist today if not for America getting involved in World War II and saving their butts. So what? So Europe forever owes it to America and should salute America and sing the national anthem? I don't really understand their point.
Well said. Well said. I think, yeah, I see that all the time. I think to myself, okay, yeah, I get it. They're allies, right? There are very clear and very public arms deals and trades that happen between Israel and the U.S. But reminder, a soldier is not just the gun. A soldier is not just the weaponry that they have possession of. A soldier is a heart. A soldier is a soul. Soldier has the ability. Sorry, what?
No, and I think that's very important, and it's an important point to bring up because the first day you draft into the Israeli army, you get this thing called Ruach Tzal, and essentially what it is it's the ethics of the army, and that includes things called like responsibility of the individual, tarat neshek, right, the purity of the gun, when you're allowed to shoot, when you're not allowed to shoot, kavod adam, respect of man, respect of your enemy. Very, very, very important values that the IDF instills on you on day one before you even get your gun. And I carry that with me in my wallet every single day, everywhere I go, because I think it's important for people to understand, even in a war, we do not have the right to just kill people indiscriminately. That's not how war works, okay? The way that it works is when you have people who are shooting at you, or you have people who have RPGs, or you have people who are hiding in tunnels, those people are going to die. But you know what's really upsetting, and it really, really bothers me about the way that the news and all these news outlets have gone about reporting this war, is how they report casualty estimates, right? If you look at every single news outlet, they will report, say the thing that probably will vilify Israel, that Israel kills 90 in strike, right? But then when you read deeper into it, it'll say, okay, this number does not distinguish between combatants and civilians. They have no idea how many combatants were killed, no idea how many civilians were killed, and we will never know. You know why? Because when we were fighting in Gaza, firsthand account, firsthand experience, there were people that are not wearing garb that indicates that they're in the military. They're not wearing uniforms. So nobody is raising their hand and saying, hey, shoot me, only me, right? They're not doing that. And that is intentionally so that they could garner international media attention when they're killed to be considered as civilians. What do I mean by that? When we were in a firefight, after the firefight ended, we went to go check out the bodies of the people with guns and whatever it is to make sure that there's no bombs on them, that maybe there's intelligence that we could collect. These people with AK-47s that were just shooting at us are wearing flip-flops and a trench coat. Flip-flops. I mean, you're talking about random people wearing whatever they could possibly find that makes them look like civilians, right? And then you find out that this person is in the Nukhba brigade of Hamas, which is their special forces brigade, and was in Be'eri on October 7th, responsible for the death of multiple Israelis. And he's wearing complete civilian clothing. So it's very, very, very unfortunate that people have to die at all. It's unfortunate we have to be in this war at all. We do not want to be in this war. I did not want to have to leave my entire family to go and fight. But again, we're not even just fighting for Jews. We're not even just fighting for the hostages. We're fighting for the Palestinians as well. So long as Hamas enslaves these people and keeps them as their slaves and as their pawns in their war to die on their behalf, there will never be peace. And there will be continued hate on both sides. I always say this, and I like to highlight it, that on October 7th, you didn't just have the murder and the rape of the 1,300 Israelis, and you didn't just have the hostage taking of the 300 Israelis. You know what you had? You had Hamas condemning to death the 35,000 plus Palestinians that have been killed since the war began. You did not start this war, those people would still be alive. It's that simple. If the war did not begin, those people would be alive. Gaza would literally not be leveled right now. We wouldn't have to go house to house. We wouldn't have to have people evacuated. We wouldn't have to do any of this. Again, all you have to do to end this war is give back the hostages who have been in Gaza for 9 months, including 8 U.S. citizens who are currently in Gaza as we speak. 8 U.S. citizens. Okay? Release them. Disarm. Can't be more simple than that.
Thank you for that incredibly poignant message. Sam, I want to step away from the kind of questions I've been asking you in the past 30 minutes. I want to actually ask you instead something else on a more personal level. and that is, how are you? Are you doing okay? And what has stayed with you since Gaza?
Look, I appreciate you asking that question. War sucks. War is the worst, really the worst thing in the entire world. And I wish, like I said before, I wish I didn't have to go. Not a single Israeli is happy to have to leave their house and not know if they'll ever see their family again. Not a single one. Not a single one. Not a single person is happy to hear on the news that another soldier has died. Not a single person is happy to know that still, after 9 months, there are people who are hostage. We do not want this. We want peace. How am I doing? I'll be a lot better when this is all over. And until then, unfortunately, we have to continue to fight. Until then, I know my grandfather, who went through hell just as well to liberate the world from the inhumanities that the Nazis brought to the world, I feel just the same. It's my duty and obligation to rid the inhumanities that Hamas has brought to the world. And I promise you that it's not that we're against Palestinians. We aren't. We're not against Muslims. We are against radical terrorism that just wants to see the world burn.
Sam, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for telling your story. I'm getting a little choked up as you're describing this. And yeah, I think having been fighting this from the content creator standpoint since the beginning, seeing the world's reaction has been incredibly disheartening. I think the number one thing that I've mourned since the beginning, like what I remember, like I actually like bottled it up the first week after finding out about October 7th. I had a trip to San Francisco right after. And of course, San Francisco is a very radically left place. So the radical leftism was just really starting to ramp up post October 7th, right around then. That was before the invasion of Gaza started. And I just remember like holding my breath. I just remember wondering what next. And I think the biggest thing that I've been grieving, that I mourned when I finally let it out, when I finally processed and realized I just needed a good cry. The number one thing that I realized was I wasn't just mourning the 13,000 that were killed and raped and burned. I wasn't just mourning the fact that we're not going to have peace anymore. I was mourning the fact that my idealism is gone. Yeah. That the things that I have been brought up to believe about the world are just evidently wrong. And again, no Jew wants that. No Jew wants the place that we're in right now. No Jew wanted October 7th. Jews didn't ask for October 7th. As Sam has pointed out very well through these past 30 minutes, not just who started it, but why the chips fell the way they did. We're still here. There's still questions. There's still dust settling from the chaos of war. It feels like we're an anthill that just got kicked and we're scrambling to find the anthill again. But, I think I speak for a lot of us when I could say that we're now almost, let's see, it's right now July. It's been about 9 months. Yeah, 9 months. We're numb. The Jewish and Israeli people internationally are numb because we've been dealing with the same pain since October 7th, 2023. And we're here now. And I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
I miss the days where I didn't feel like I was constantly at war.
Trust me, and Chaz, I hate to tell you this, but if you're tired of it, think about how much more tired the soldiers are of it, who have been going in and out of Gaza for months now. I mean, I was only in Gaza for about 2 months. I have friends who are in Gaza 130, 140 days, and it's terrible.
Yeah. No, I know you're right. The willpower and the strength that these men and women have had going into Israel is awe-inspiring. And again, thank you for your service that you've done for the Jewish people and for Israel. And there's a battle to fight, and come what may, we'll have to keep fighting. Just because we're numb doesn't mean we're tired. Doesn't mean we're gonna exhaust out. We're still here. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai. Before we go, I'd like to just add one thing, and I think it's really important to note That in the end of the day, the only way to have peace is to have dialogue, and it is to ask the difficult questions. But more important than that, it's to say, okay, I might not agree with you, you might not agree with me, but we have to agree on a path forward. I might not agree with you on who started the war, or when the alleged occupation started, or if there's an occupation to begin with. You're not going to agree with me on why Israel deserves a right to exist, or whatever it might be. But I know one thing is for certain. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. We have a choice, and it doesn't have to be bloody. And so I truly believe that the way forward is to show humanity to one another. And that's been my goal. That's been my dream, and that's been my calling, to go to all these different, whether it's at a church, whether it's at a mosque, whether it's on a debate panel, whether it's wherever it might be, wherever it might take me, to preach that as an IDF soldier, I can still say in the same breath that I care about Palestinians, and more importantly, I care about peace. That's all I want. That's all we want. And I hope for a day where they say, you know what? We've had enough of this. Let's just figure it out.
Amen. Amen. Sam, thanks again for being on this podcast.
Thank
For
you.
those who are listening, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is on my Instagram, SamFree26, as you guys see on that little tracker on the bottom. Reach out. I'm always happy to have a discussion, especially the difficult ones. Let's make peace happen, guys.
Amen. And to the listeners, thank you so much for supporting the show. Please be sure to go buy merch on badjew.co that supports the channel directly. Also, please be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And also, please do follow our socials at badjewpod. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Shalom.